Welcome to Daily Dose. My name is Robert, here with my new friend Billy, who I met at the King Convention, fellow dollar baby filmmaker.
Mhm.
Um, so, Billy, let me just open up by saying, how you doing post King Con? What's going on with you?
Oh, I'm good. I went right from the King Con into my own book launch that I did last night. So all the recovery that my lost voice did from the con talking for 72 straight hours gone out the door. So I'm a little hoarse again, but it's all right. It's all worth it. It was a great time.
Well, let's not bury the headline, though. You mentioned a book. Let's get back to that for a minute. What
Yeah.
book are you promoting? And we'll certainly put it in the notes down below.
Cool. So it's a new collection of short stories that I did called Long-Term Damage, and it's seven very dark horror stories, and they're all very different from each other, but all center around sort of a moment in somebody's life where their lives are changed forever for the worst.
For the worse.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to survivor type in a minute, speaking of
Yeah.
the worst. But it does, maybe I can get into your King origin story, I guess, from there to talk about,
Yeah.
what do you have a deep affinity for horror? Is that kind of your thing? Has that always been your thing?
Yeah, I sort of like I've been a Stephen King fan forever because I'm from Maine and I write horror. I like horror stuff. So like Stephen King has been like the thing
Yeah.
um since I was a kid. I didn't get into horror movies as much until almost college because I just didn't have the understanding or the knowledge of all the franchises and who everyone was and where it all came from. But once I discovered like The Exorcist, Friedkin was a god to me. And then John Carpenter, like I know I pull a lot of influence from him. Once I started finding all those, I started saying like, oh, okay, I think I found like where I want to live, like in between all these guys.
Yeah.
And so yeah, horror has kind of been the thing lately.
The way you phrase that probably freaks some people out. I saw all these horrific things. I said, yeah, that's where I want to
That's
live.
I want to be right there.
Those people drive by things that are terrible, go, never. You go, that's me.
Like, let me park here for a while.
That's awesome. So, where, if you don't mind me asking, where in Maine did you grow up?
Kind of all over. I was born in Presque Isle, so it's very northern Maine. And then I
Mhm.
lived in a town called Madawaska for a long time. It's my mom's hometown, right on the border of Canada. And then I moved kind of all around. I had Old Town, Caribou, and then I went to high school in Old Orchard Beach. And I think anyone from New England knows where Old Orchard Beach is. It's
Okay.
like it's a little outside of Portland.
Okay. Maine's really its own thing. I've been there a couple
Yeah.
times and it is a beautiful state, number one. From a like social standpoint, I mean, obviously King's a god there. He's
Yeah.
one of the greatest exports of the state. What do you take away from your Maine upbringing as because you're now out in Los Angeles, the opposite coast?
Yeah, I've been out here 17 years now.
Yeah.
And I like Maine. I understand Maine a lot more now than I did when I was a kid. Because, growing up, it's small town America. You don't really think too much of it because you've never seen the outside world. But then I moved right after high school. I went to Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida. And that immediately broadened my horizons. And when I went back to Maine, I went, oh, I can appreciate how quiet and quaint and kind of slow paced things can be here. And now that I've lived in Los Angeles for 17 years, I go back and I say, nature and the sky, you can see the stars at night. Like, so I appreciate all the really good food. I appreciate the art scene in Portland, the music scene around Portland, and just the beauty of Aroostook County up in the north.
Yeah. So it sounds like I said, some people leave home and go, forget it, I'm out of here. Sounds like you have a healthy appreciation for home. And how do you feel about being in LA? Is it nature of the beast, or do you have something you like about it?
I do love LA. I'm frustrated with it most of the time. But it's a little bit nature of the beast. This is where the movies are. This is where the people who make movies are. And obviously there are exceptions, but it was just my goal to come here for pretty much my whole life. I knew I wanted to tell stories and make movies from being maybe 5 years old. And so it's just what I was gonna do.
And Florida State was that film school?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I did, as I say, I did my time 5.5 years in LA. Went to UCLA, and like you, it's funny. I had that kind of love-hate thing. There was times where, I mean, I was over the moon about it. I couldn't have been more thrilled. Oh my God, I'm part of this thing. And then other times during the dry spells being like, what was I thinking? Why am I here? And
Yeah.
I've had the passion to go back a couple times, but my wife hates it. And so, I mean, she said, unless there is a reason to be there, we're not going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, my wife is a TV writer, and
Oh, well,
most of the writers' rooms, they're here. And even with Zoom rooms and stuff, you kind of have to be here.
yeah,
So you have to be here or you have to travel a lot. And that
yeah.
costs a lot and it's just exhausting. So like I don't think anyone really wants to do that.
No, I mean, I remember people doing that in various places, probably even as far out as Las Vegas now. I know some people make
Yeah.
that commute, which sounds crazy, but I know, yeah, again, people will. They'll do a lot of things to
Yeah.
make it work. LA, interesting beast. The fact that you're married to a television writer, um,
Hmm.
I think that's pretty cool. Does that work? Do you guys have competitive schedules, or how does that work?
It does work. The last couple years have been rough because neither of us have really gotten much,
Yeah,
just because no one has. But
right.
when we were getting work, it was tricky because we also have two little kids, and I
Mm,
remember during the pandemic, just the stress was so high because she was working on a show that was top secret, could not share. She couldn't be in the room with anybody else, me included, and we had to have our baby. I was in this room editing on a show,
wow.
so we had a babysitter in our middle bedroom here with the baby while the little one was at school. And when the baby went down for a nap, our babysitter had to leave because she couldn't hang out with me in here while I'm editing, and she couldn't be in the room with my wife. It was just chaos. And so
Wow.
in that sense, yes, the competitive schedules were really tough. But
Yeah.
outside of that, our kids are a little bit older now, so they both go to school. We have that to work with, and
Yeah.
we kind of figure it out from there.
Well, and it sounds like, I'm guessing you guys have empathy for each other because you're both in the business.
Yeah. And thankfully, I made a movie in 2019 and I just up and left for 3 weeks. And we had a little 1 year old at home. And so we had to really like plan for it, set it up, make sure she had what she needed. But yeah, she was pretty great to be willing to take that on 3 weeks by herself with a 1 year old.
I,
But
you
she
know
wouldn't
what?
have done it if she didn't understand what I was doing.
I did something similar in retrospect. Now I think about it. I took off for 2 weeks for a documentary when our two were at the time, gosh, I think they were 3 and 1. So
Oh,
yeah. So I feel you. Hey, look, that's it for this episode. But I want to get back to, we barely touched on King Kong. This is great stuff.
yeah.
Let's come back for the next episode, and I want to hear more about your experience there in Vegas. See you in a minute.
Awesome.